As a business owner, do you know who your target audience is? In this day and age, there's like a billion platforms for you to choose from. How do you know which one to choose? What's the right platform? And for goodness sakes, how do you get started? At this month's Business Blend, we will go over the ever-evolving digital landscape, how to sort through the maze of digital advertising platforms so you can find the perfect audience for your product or service. Today, something I wanted to talk about is a lot of what happens in my world. I know typically when I've done talks, it's been more about storytelling, introducing yourself, and like how to be who you are and make that message come across more clearly. But today I wanted to be more specific and a little more technical of, okay, what is the advertising side? What are the platforms? There's like 1,000 platforms. How do you sort between them? Finding the right point, and essentially, who is your audience and how do you pick the correct platform? Main things that I want to talk to get started is what is marketing, what is advertising, why does it all matter? A few examples I think are fun that I like to pick up to look to the future. We like to look to the past. A historical figure I am fond of, a lot of people have been, is the Roman official, senator, and philosopher Cicero. And one of my favorites, in one of his writings, it is literally him defending his hobby, where he was very ardent on to get information to all peoples within the empire. You would translate from Latin to Greek, and he was the biggest proponent of let people in this part of the empire know what we do and getting rid of the language barriers. And then, of course, one of my favorite philosophers, Socrates, was very good at getting attention and getting a market. In fact, calling it the Socratic method for marketing, where you would go into a public space, draw attention to yourself, and ask why at every possible and conceivable notion. Everybody he attracted was very confused. He became one of the greatest philosophers of all time, and all he did was sit in public and ask why to everyone and everything. Before I go into advertising, I kind of want to talk about marketing as a whole real quick. What is marketing? And I have an answer as a marketing agency specialist, but this time I went and looked of like, what do other people what is the common culture form of a definition of marketing? What I found was, at a whole, marketing is creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings that have value. And that was too long for me, so I cut it down substantially to say marketing is communicating value, which lines up with what we have. There we go. Are you communicating value of what you have, your business or offering? Congratulations, you are marketing. The next level of that then is what is advertising. Similarly, I should know what that is, but I decided to see what the actual dictionary definition of advertising is, which surprised me a little bit because it was not referenced to paid medium, but instead the calling of attention of the public to a product, service, or business, which again was too long for me, so we cut it down again, and I said public attention. So marketing is communicating value, the advertising is then bringing public attention to it. And why does any of that matter? Because business without business stinks. I don't know if anybody has ever had a slow day where you're sitting, waiting for something to happen. Nobody has come in. It's agonizing. Especially, that's when the anxiety comes in. You have the thoughts to yourselves, what am I doing? Is everything okay? How do I do it? What have I done? All of these compounding things of like, what do I do? Business without business stinks. But in order to effectively advertise, we don't want to make a spectacle. We don't necessarily want to be like Socrates, go out in the middle of the street, sit down and ask why of everything, especially if we were doing something like sandwich sales. That's probably not the best form. So we also want to bring attention to what we do, but not in a silly, rude, insensitive, or foolish way. Instead, we want attention that is relevant to both the customer and to our business, which leads me to the second big part of what I do. Who is your audience? Moving away from what marketing is to who First things first, depending on what kind of business you're in, there are specified people you want to work with. Who is it that you want to do business with? So, if you are a business, you want people who need what you're offering. If you are in auto parts, as a good example, you probably want to work with somebody who has a car. Not a requirement, but it does make sense. Another thing, if you're doing contracting services, flooring, roofing, it probably makes sense to go after people who own a home or a business that has roofing or flooring. Otherwise, we're a little confused at what's going on. You are welcome to buy flooring for no reason, but it helps if there's a purpose behind what you do. You can get into more different things. Food. Food is a great product for people who eat, which we hope is about everybody, except when you're in the food business, you can get a little bit more linear. People who like the food that you eat. I remember growing up in my neighborhood, there was a strange rivalry locally between a Subway and a Quiznos, and I did not understand at the time even what the difference was, but it was fundamentally between hot sandwiches and cold sandwiches. And the game changer was when Subway decided to toast their sandwiches and now said we can do both, and Quiznos is like, I'm not gonna make a cold sandwich, what is this? And then different kinds of businesses, like not necessarily business, nonprofit has its own set of things where we want to work with people a little more direct. We're looking for people who want to serve with time or money. So you're looking for volunteers or you are looking for donors. And it is that idea of you're appealing to people's desire for service in the means they can. So fiscally or physically. So how do we find them? There are a few ways to do that. I've covered some of this before, mainly through the years. One is through the idea of personas. If you've started business, you vaguely understand who you're looking for. If you can take the time to try and develop who this ideal person is, their thoughts, hopes, dreams, hobbies, problems, who they are, where they are, and kind of develop that out and then say, anything I do, I am aiming to attract that kind of person, and all of your messaging comes around it. Another thing you can do is audience building. I will keep going back to Socrates because it's fun, but if you aren't in the public square, this generally in the form of social media, you are creating stuff, bringing in attention and making an audience. The process of audience building is just by talking about yourself to some degree and attracting people to you. You already have a base of people of, oh, the people who are looking at what I'm doing are probably at least a little bit the types of people who would want to do business with me in the first place. Looking through similar businesses, sandwiches is great because it's the inherent competition of if Subway wants to get better, they should look at Jimmy John's. If Jimmy John's wants to get better, they should look at Jersey Mike's. Should anybody look at Quiznos? I don't know anymore. But this idea of there are probably people doing similar things to you, and especially if they're in different markets or it is competitor research. Let's take a look up, like a Walmart versus Target. If Target is getting a very specific kind of audience Walmart's interested in, it would behoove Walmart to look and say, what is Target doing? And that is in fact how Walmart was built. Sam Walton went to all kinds of businesses, said, here's what they're doing well, here's what they're not, and adapted everybody's best practices, and it worked great. Part of it is just inherent legwork. There is truth in saying, okay, I don't know what's going on, I'm a little lost, I just need to hit the ground, ask questions, figure out what's going on, and do the work. So, marketing, advertising, finding people, and we get to the actual thing of, so how do we do it? How do we move forward? How do we navigate the platform maze? There are so many platforms. A light list that at least I have, because I've worked in most of these, is you have Google, you have Facebook, you have Instagram, you have YouTube, you have the new streaming platforms, you have Spotify, you have Netflix, you have Hulu, you have Disney Plus, you have Paramount Plus, you have the sub-networks within those, you have the Google Display Network, you have YouTube as part of Google, you have your Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, WhatsApp, Peacock. I thought that was a bird, now that's a service that you can watch videos on, I don't know. It's ridiculous. How do you find the right one when there's so many? First piece of advice is do not do it randomly. So I've known people who've tried that where it's like, you can get success. Like there's a little bit of, if you throw randomly into the lottery, you can win sometimes, but you won't know why. And the truth is, while there are all these platforms, some of them are similar, they all have a very specific use case. Each ad platform and ad type has a purpose. So 3 broad categories that I'll be talking through today are search, display, and video. So the first is kind of the main thing, probably the most popular digital advertising platform is Google Ads. And when we say that, we are generally referring to the search platform, where Google is a search engine. A lot of it is based on user input. I'm looking for a thing. So I am looking for a replacement mirror for my car. That's a real thing. Maybe I'll find it one day. So if I look for that, I can expect that I will get advertisements from auto parts. My car is a Ford, so probably the Ford Motor Company themselves will be trying to get my attention to be like, we have what you're looking for, do it here. A lot of that when you're developing search ads is intention-based. We want to anticipate what somebody's going to look for, what the search terms are going to be, and then what we are going to do is put money behind these words and terms. So we're going to do it that way. It is strategic based on search intent. So if we're going to do something like that, we can't expect, okay, I'm going to put all these words here by there. There has to be a defined purpose. Then we shift over to what I'm going to call display. These are things like our actual social media platforms. So Facebook, Instagram are pretty big on this, where you loosely are allowed targeting data. You can figure out, okay, based on our persona, we can try and build that out here and try and show what we have to people here. It's not based on search intent, but more impressions and frequency. How often is something shown on a feed? Can we do that enough to get somebody's attention and to get them to make an action? So that one typically is for things like brand awareness or event awareness. It's like if a sale is going on, showing it to somebody 10 to 20 times during the duration of the sale, so it really sticks in and be like, oh, I should go to Target, there's a sale, I guess, after the 40th time, is a way where, like, through attrition, you're doing it. Also, as far as cost goes, it tends to be much cheaper per impression because the anticipation is they want to show it multiple times instead of be shown the perfect thing that they're looking for. And then the last one is video, where video exists kind of overlapping a few different means. And these are platforms like YouTube and TikTok, for example, but then also the broader streaming services, so our Netflix, our Hulu, our Disney Plus, and all of our inevitable paid platforms that we used to pay for and not get ads, but we're here now and we'll take advantage. And there's even a delineation between those two. So if we talk about a YouTube, it's still similar where we're doing an impression-focused thing. We kind of want it to be showed, and you give users control over whether or not they want to interact with content. I think everybody's favorite thing in the world when it comes to advertising is the skip button, because you now have control over you're going to deal with this person's time. Whereas on a streaming service, you do the ad plan for Hulu, you have to kind of sit there and deal with it until the ad is over. This tends to be a more traditional media where you are buying ad space that will be there. There's a guarantee that every 5 to 7 minutes, we will show an ad or an ad set on this platform. You are saying, I want to be one of those ads during that space, and you are assigned. And then at that point, it is forced attention. And at that point, you are dealing with, okay, great, hopefully it's good, hopefully it's timely, and someone doesn't hate you for what they've done after the first 5 or 6 times that you've shown it. So there's a bit of back and forth on that, but that one is a blatant media buy. So different things like that as you're thinking through the decision of platform is, how do you want to interact with other people's attention? With all of that said, your desired outcome should help dictate your platform choice. What do you want to happen? If you want somebody to give you a phone call after they've interacted with it, you should use a medium where you can press, let's do a phone call, or you can push that message. If you want somebody to show up somewhere, go to a location, you're probably doing something closer to a media buy. This is where things like more traditional avenues, television or even movie theater ads, something where I'm not going to interact with anything right now because I've just sat down and I'm going to watch a 2-hour movie, but I'm now aware that that is a place in my community or close to me that I'm going to go do. Like, the options are very broad. So just what is your outcome? Thinking about that and then moving forward. And the thing that is my favorite part of this is how do you get started? The actual, if you pick a platform, I've picked a handful. Here are some very specific steps of if I want to start advertising today, how do I actually do it? Think through your budget. What kind of budget do you have? Generally, I am tuned to work with small business, so I want to work with the platforms where whatever the lowest amount I can do and then scale up is, that's where I want to be, because my goal is we'll start low and we'll scale from there. Some platforms are very good with this, some are not. So budget, I like platforms with higher flexibility, and it also depends on market context, what you choose. Where are you allowed to serve? What does it look like? And how much control do you have over your targeting? So for things like this, again, I talked about Google. Google with their budget is highly flexible. The search is bid-based, so per inquiry is when you tend to get charged. Facebook, very similar, highly flexible. You can start with as low as about $1 a day on whatever you're doing, and it is impression frequency based, so how often do you want to see a thing? Something like Netflix is less flexible. It is also viewed placement based, but you have a higher starting point, closer to around $25 a day. They do not have their own ads platform for now. It sounds like it's coming, but they have partnered with Microsoft Ads. So when you have your Bing ads, you now have the option to do a CTV advertisement, which now you can show your stuff on Netflix. And they're like, you are not allowed to do this for a cent below $25 a day. Have fun. And you literally cannot go forward. So we definitely tested it, because their hope is that you'll spend at least $500. And we definitely scheduled and ran a campaign for the last business blend for exactly 1 day, exactly $25, and it worked, and it was beautiful. So if you're clever and creative, you can also maximize your bigger platforms for low ad spend. But is it built that way? Absolutely not. And when we talk about entry-level budgets, I'll just kind of run through all the ones where you can get started with $1 a day: Google, YouTube, Microsoft, Facebook, Instagram. All these work. There's a secondary tier where you have things like Spotify and Roku, where they tend to start at 15. Spotify is very cool because as part of that, they will do service offerings for you that no other platform I'm aware does, where because it is audio-based, they have a service where for free over the course of a week, they will work with you to help you write a script for your ad and hire a voice actor on their team to record the ad. That is not AI, that is a real person. I specified that for free. It's if you're locked in at that minimum rate of $15 a day or more, it basically covers itself. They're fine, and you can run that way. So some of these you get additional benefits. Roku is another one where $15 a day, but you get access to a lot of the Roku features. So your ability to do interactive ads, your ability to kind of do these sponsored and featured things, and like the quality of your ad has to be higher. The features you're using are going to be better quality, so you're buying into something that's a little more intense that way. And then there's a few more where Hulu Disney Plus recently did a campaign where we're merging the ad platform is there. Please sign up. And I signed up, and they said, that's cool. I'm still not into the platform. I'm a little bitter. So as far as I know, their minimum is $500, and they did not specify if that's daily, monthly, or whatever. I'm angry at them. $500 should be your plan. Paramount Plus is the same. Whatever it is, it needs to be, you're spending $500. And then I looked for Amazon on the media side. So Amazon ads tend to be also flexible based on what your product is. Amazon Media, so streaming, and Amazon Prime. I just wrote don't. It was incredibly expensive and difficult to get into. It feels like they are really appealing to big brands. So a number that I saw was around like $2,000 starting, and then not much more in there where it's like, you should apply, but here are the terms. And it's very much like, I don't know that I qualify for any of this, and I don't know that I currently represent anybody who qualifies for any of this. So hard pass on Amazon. And the final part where we'll rope in, the hard technical, bear with me, is accounts and where to go. So if you want to get started with Google Ads, and just about every platform has an ads manager. So what you do, Google Ads Manager, you go ads.google.com, you sign up. It's very easy. If you have a Gmail account, that's really all it takes. Go in, they will generally walk you through setting up an account and a campaign. Get started with your first ad today. At the very end, congratulations, please put in your payment information, and then you're good to go. And then you're essentially done, and you can go back through and customize. Facebook runs the same way. business.facebook.com. You go to the Facebook Ads Manager. They don't hold your hand through making an account, but as soon as you start, they want everything to be as automatic as possible. Be very wary of that, because for all the ease of creating the account, you also miss your targeting opportunities, but that's just my professional opinion. Before you can run this, please put in your payment information. For YouTube, you also go do it through Google, which is easy. For a lot of display, you also do it through Google, which is great. For anything Instagram, Facebook Messenger, obviously, and WhatsApp, if you choose to go that route, that is all done through the Facebook Ads Manager. Spotify, same thing, ads.spotify.com. You go to their ad manager, same thing, run through, payment at the end. Microsoft Ad Manager, ads.microsoft.com, and then it all tends to be the same thing, TikTok, business.tiktok.com. So cautiously set up, cautiously add payment, and make sure that all of your goals are defined, and then that's how you get started. So that was very linear, very broad to very linear. So I'd say if you have any more specific questions about ads, ad platforms, and how they work, at this point, you can talk to us after, or book a call with Pullman Marketing, shameless plug, where we are happy to, for free, walk through advertising in a single meeting. So that is an overview of advertising. Yes?
Very, very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question about print marketing, print advertising, like newspapers. I know you're on a page, nobody does it anymore. But print, and the other one is audio, like podcasts. Have you done similar studies on the effectiveness or cost or anything like that?
So I do have some on audio. Print is interesting. Print just tends to be in a similar way where you're doing an ad buy. So the mechanics of it are you're going through, you have an audience, typically whatever that audience is, they'll see it. We do have a thing where inserting print versus a direct mailer, you do have more ability with a direct mailer. It tends to be far more expensive, but you can make something flashy, but you do run the risk of you've spent money, oh, I see this, and it goes in the garbage. I'm guilty of that because I swear if I get another credit offer from a card I've never heard of who didn't buy me dinner first, I'm gonna throw it away. You run the risk of you have immediate attention for a second. If you do not get it once the initial thing is done, unless it's particularly compelling, like there's a date or an event, we don't know. I know I have seen event promos work better than offer promos, but it also just depends. I know people are also very clever where I've had print media that's like, somebody hand wrote this. No, they didn't almost, but it's like, oh, I feel good about this though. It's like, I'm more inclined to interact with this medium. So if you know who your audience is and you're going broad, it can work. Audio, I know more from the Spotify realm where they're very good about doing it by playlist. You can do playlists if you know who your people are. You can track like by specific areas. So it's like the example they gave is like if you know somebody who's like, I'm listening to 90% of my music is Taylor Swift, like we're gonna target people who listen to Taylor Swift and our ad is gonna play for them. Part of it is the passive attention and you're essentially recreating radio where it's just, I hear it. I hear it enough times. I start to remember it. I'm going to associate with them. I don't know that anybody has done this quite as good as O'Reilly's. You have the jingle, it's stuck in your head forever. Right, where it's like, they have it, you understand, and you know vaguely that if you have a car problem, or you hear the term auto parts, O'Reilly's is one, just from that audio where you're like compelled to go. Where the interaction point and kind of like what a conversion action would be is harder to measure because often people are doing something while listening. Often you don't have undivided attention, so it's like, sign up now. They probably won't because they're driving or they're doing chores or they're zoning out or they're multitasking. It's like, okay, great. But then again, I also appreciate another ad type they do where this hour of ad-free music is brought to you by whoever has just done you a community service and you don't have to deal with this for another hour. Or it's like there's that affinity that's created. It's like, I like you. I'm gonna remember that because you have just paid for me to not hear you talk. And it's just that like a backward thing because I didn't have time to write this in, but like the counter effects of advertising, where it's like, it can be negative too. If you push it too far, you're gonna have the exact opposite effect. I think one of the best case studies of that was during the 2016 election. Candidate Mike Bloomberg spent the most amount of money anybody ever has on digital advertising. And he was so hated for it bipartisanly because his ads were everywhere. It's like every second or third ad you were was Mike Bloomberg, and people were sick of it because you just overdid it. Massively oversaturated, and he dropped out not long after having spent the most. So it's like, there's a dance. There's a dance we do on how much attention we want. So I don't know if there's any hard study, but there is some correlatory, like you're doing a dance, you can get people's attention. Do you remember what they said? If you can remember what they said, then you've done it efficiently, I'd say. Yeah.
So with running video advertising, and I guess other ads too, how often should we be cycling through that content so that we don't run into the, I have seen this same ad 20 million times and it's gone stale? And it's not even that it's a bad ad, it's just, it hasn't worked or it just doesn't, it's just been on repeat for months.
Yeah, that's a very good question because, of course, as our favorite is, it depends. Famous advertiser David Ogilvy is like, if you have a good ad that can run for 20 years, there's no reason you should ever change it. So I'd say if you create something that is that timeless, there's really no reason. You see ads that run forever, that's because they're doing well, but you do have to be aware of ad fatigue. So typically what we as an agency like to do is usually in 3-month stunts, where it's like, we'll go for a quarter, see what happens, or if we see a drop before then, okay, maybe we need to change something. We're kind of doing a quarterly update of like, is this still working? Are people sick of it? How does it work? So I would start there. Again, keeping a beat on what it's looking like, what is your impression share like, and most importantly, what is your interaction rate like? If you go to a point where it's like, this was running great for the first half of the year, this is not doing so well the second half of the year, what are we doing wrong? It's probably you're not doing something wrong. It's people are like, okay, we get it, that's great, let's go on to the next thing, please. So you can get kind of cues based on what your desired conversion output is. And then, of course, the other one is if the platforms just decide to stop showing it because they think it's not relevant anymore. That's usually the number one big cue of, all right, it's not even showing anymore, let's do something else.
Do any of the platforms you mentioned have the ability to do that for you? Like, can you enter in multiple ads and have them show a variety? Because sometimes I see, when I'm watching Hulu or something like that, multiple advertisements for the same company that are different slightly.
Yes. So Facebook is probably the best at this, where when they go in, they're very much like when you're creating your content, yeah, you can do a image or a video, or you could do like 5. It's up to you. More and more platforms are doing this where it is a level of dynamic insertion where it's like, hey, give us a bunch of stuff. Google started this where even with their search ads, to make what is called a responsive search ads, they're like 15 headlines, 4 descriptions. We're gonna pick the one most relevant. So often, more and more, you're seeing ad platforms be like, yeah, give us 5 videos. So if you shoot a set of videos, give us a few different versions, we'll show the best one. So yeah, a few, it depends. And then I would imagine if Hulu ever lets me in, that is probably the same. Thank you very much. I appreciate you all being here and your time. Of course, I'd like to close out thanking our sponsors, the Pullman Chamber of Commerce and Avista Utilities, and of course, Umpqua Bank for always sponsoring us. We appreciate it, and I, of course, appreciate all of you. Have a wonderful day. Please eat food, drink more coffee, talk a little bit, and we'll see you next month.